Today, I want to thank the Columbus Dispatch and for sponsoring this and several of the programs in Dispatch Chats series. Tim May is here today on behalf of the organization. Today's speaker, there's a complete bio for our panelists in the forum programs, and I think you probably know each of them pretty well. I'll provide only brief introductions. Our guest today is an OSU football hero. Need we say more? Yes, he is also a sports commentator, obviously a devoted father, if you saw those pictures in the paper this week, and dedicated leader in the fight to find a cure for breast cancer. Please welcome Chris Spielman. Oh, second time that happened today. Sorry about that, Chris. Joining us this afternoon is Tim May, sports writer for the Columbus Dispatch, who has covered the ups and some downs of the OSU football and OSU sports generally for the past 28 years. On behalf of the Metropolitan Club, please welcome our speaker. And Tim, you got the first question.
Can I start real quick?
Absolutely.
Thanks for trying to take me out, Metro Club. Good thing I still have a little athletic.
That's right.
Well,
it's the second time it's happened. The executive director also tripped this before.
Well, I don't feel bad now. Okay.
Yeah, I want to thank you for having me here to grill Chris Spielman. That's not exactly the right word. It'd be more like a barbecue or something like that, Chris. But you know, it's funny. I was just talking with you. We first met in that room right over there. You were here in 1984 to accept an award from the Touchdown Club of Columbus, and you'd already had your picture on the Wheaties box. You were already famous, and you've come a long way since then.
Well, it's I'm thinking about that every time I walk into this building, and I think about 1984 and what I thought my future was going to be. I always thought my future, and I was quoted as saying this in an interview. I'm somewhat embarrassed by it, but if you read the book, you'll find that I'm very honest about things that I've said and done and mistakes that I make and made, but also some of the good things that have come about. But the quote was, I'm going to play football, coach, then die. And never in my wildest dreams would I imagine myself up here as a co-author and also a warrior against cancer. I don't want that job, but I have that job.
I was going to say, what compelled you, as you think back on it now, what compelled you to do this book? I mean, obviously you had a great cohort in Bruce Hooley. I mean, a guy who was not only your close friend, but a talented writer. But what compelled you to put it into words?
Well, I mean, I know that we went public, and Stefanie and we progressed through the ups and downs of the 5 recurrences, and we'd beat it back, then it'd come again, and when it finally went to her brain and spinal fluid, we kind of knew that that was the ball game. And so while she was still of solid mind and could have a conversation, you have to make plans. And it was very important to make plans for her funeral and how she wanted it done, and because I knew that the brain would eventually be affected and that she wasn't going to be thinking clearly. So I had to do that, and we talked about the book, and I think it's kind of bringing it home, the whole journey and the whole experience, because we've been public with this probably almost, two days after the original diagnosis on July 7th of 1998.
Did she have any problems with going this far with it? I mean, of doing a book?
No, she was out there. I mean, we have Jen McDonald, who oversees the Spielman Fund at the James, helped create a blog for Stefanie, or Ask Stefanie, on the James Care website. And there would be many times in the middle of the night where I would walk in there and see her either praying over the computer or typing away on the computer with women who suffered from this disease, asking them and trying to comfort them and providing hope, but knowing too that she was sharing her fears. Mm-hmm. And so she's been open in public because we always thought that this is a God-given opportunity and to make something happen and make a difference. And that's what it's going to continue to be, and that's what it was. In fact, my daughter, for her capstone project at Upper Arlington High School, was active with a blog called Ask Maddie, and it deals with children who lose a mother or father to cancer.
You know, since I've known you, since that day right over here in that room, it was actually an evening, I've always been struck, in other words, it would explain it, by your candidness, your openness, and your ability to express yourself, but not only do that, but to do it willingly and tell people your innermost thoughts and feelings. Where did that come from?
Well, I mean, I think I'm
talking about when you were 17, 18.
Yeah, I think
not now.
I've always been not cocky by any means. I've always been secure in who I was. And I think that one thing that I try not to do, and we all make bad mistakes, and there's so much cover-up today, and if we make a mistake, everybody's so afraid to admit that they make a mistake or they make a bad choice.
Can you give me a recent example? No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, well, you can come watch me parent for a week and you'll have plenty of examples of mistakes that I've made. But good things that I do too. I mean, that's our lives, and I think if we're honest with ourselves and you're not afraid to show that you make mistakes. And the other thing is that, to me, I mean, for whatever reason, you know, you're put up on this pedestal and people don't think that every decision you make is good and you never make mistakes. Well, that's not the case. And so I'm just going to show them I'm just like you. I'm the guy down the street. And the only thing I've been given is a platform about cancer. And that platform was provided through football and who I was and where I went to school. And we took that platform, still stayed human, and stayed humble throughout that whole process, and made this decision to make a difference in somebody's life.
Where was the bumper sticker? Was it above your bed or on the wall in your room, the NFL?
It was on my locker in the Detroit Lions, because my mindset as a football player is totally different than it is now. And I read this recently, and I think it's so true. I used to define effective living as the amount of things that I could conquer or accomplish. And after going through what you've gone through, and you sit back and reflect, especially when you write a book and you reflect on your whole life, to me, effective living is measured by the experiences that we overcome to accomplish those things. And those experiences now become your trophies, now become what you hang your hat on, as opposed to a plaque or a nice gesture from City Hall or whatever you have. I mean, all that stuff is nice, and I'm humbled by it, but that all fades away eventually. It could get lost in the fire, the kids might use it or whatever, but the experiences live in you forever, and that's what I hold on to.
I was going to say, do you wish you had kind of been that enlightened 20 years ago when you were hell-bent to win a state championship, and you were hell-bent to win a national championship, and you were hell-bent to win a Super Bowl, and those things didn't happen for you, yet you became an ultra-successful football player, an ultra-successful personality, but you know, as you look back on that now, was there a little bit missing? Stefanie was always there, but the drive, until you got the phone call, until y'all got that phone call that night, talk about how the drive consumes you to be the ultimate football player.
Well, I think that I was very lucky to realize what I wanted to be, and for whatever reason, at a very young age, my dad was a high school football coach, and I was always around it. I mean, I knew what cover 2 was by the time I was 4 years old. I could draw X's and O's, and I just grabbed it. I loved everything about football. I loved the smell of locker rooms. I loved the grass. I loved the feeling of team, all that, and it consumed me, and it overcame me, even with little toys that I received as a kid, whether they were G.I. Joes or whatever, they would turn into a football game. But you asked the question originally, do I wish I would have been as enlightened? Enlightened wouldn't be the word that I would describe myself as. I describe myself as humbled to the core. And no, because being that single-minded and that focused gave me a chance to do what I want to do as far as football, but it also gave me a chance to become humbled. And I was humbled to the core while I was playing, and I was humbled to the core by the birth of my children. And so that natural growth process that occurs in all of us with maturity and age and parenting and getting married and having a spouse and losing a spouse, that wouldn't have happened. And so I'm grateful, and I believe that from my belief system, that God used me exactly how he wanted to use me, and had perfect timing in doing it.
You know, everybody who's ever paid attention to you, and there have been millions who have, know about your football career. And like I said, from the Wheaties box to All-American at Ohio State, winning the Lombardi Trophy, Lombardi Award, excuse me.
We couldn't find it. I can't find it.
Yeah.
I know it's somewhere.
Yeah. Probably holding open a door somewhere.
I got a granite top in my kitchen. I just tell people that's it.
Maybe you worked it in, yeah. Shaved it off.
I don't
put
even
it
know
in.
where. I got to find it. I seriously do.
But I mean-
I'm glad you reminded me of that.
But
'cause
all
it's been
pro in the
bothering me,
NFL,
yeah.
all pro in the NFL, and all this stuff. And you know, and you go through a lot of that in this book. I mean, talking about your days at Ohio State and your, let's face it, supreme disappointment not being drafted in the first round in the NFL.
Just because I destroyed personal property of my
Yeah.
brothers.
Yeah, of your brothers,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Surprised you weren't arrested that day. I remember though, you did talk to me on the phone for like a couple of seconds, which I thought was like manna from
Really?
heaven. Yeah, yeah.
That was
it
a mistake.
Yeah, I think your dad put me on the phone. This was much later though. I was
Yeah,
smart enough
okay,
to
all right.
know when to call because
All right.
when Eric Cummerow went ahead of you, I went,
Wow.
this is not going to go down well. Not that there's anything wrong about
No,
Eric
no,
Cummerow,
no.
but to me it pointed out what you found out later. You know, pro football experts put a lot on to like height, weight, and
Right.
speed as opposed to a football player, and they still do that to this day, believe it or not.
They do, but I think that ultimately all you need is an opportunity and a shot
Yeah.
and to go out and produce. And my first preseason game was in Cleveland, and we came after. We have a film session after the game and a meeting review. I know I didn't do very well, and
This
head
is
coach.
in the book, by the way.
yeah,
This is good.
The head coach stands up. Where's Spielman? Right here, coach. And he goes, man, that is terrible. Why did we draft you? You are horrible. And you know, right then and there, but that's what I need sometimes. And so right then and there, I said, okay, we played the Seattle Seahawks next week in the Silverdome, and I remember that whole week that I was all, this is it. This is what I've been made to do. This is how I define myself. This is what my purpose on this earth is to be an NFL football player, and went out and played pretty well, and then proceeded to have a pretty darn okay career, good career.
But you kind of cheated along the way, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, I remember talking to you after that
I kind
Cotton
of
Bowl.
finding an edge, but you can describe it however you want.
I remember talking to you after, exactly. I remember talking to you after that Cotton Bowl when you had 2 interceptions. You took one back for a touchdown. And, you know, you just talked so fluidly about the fact that you ran the wide shallow route, and then you knew they threw the curl off of that, and you just stepped right in front of the curl route and intercepted the ball like it was like you were reading it out of a book because you'd watched the video, et cetera, and, or the back then film probably. But, you know, it's just, I don't know, you talked about a while ago how consumed you were. What was it like to walk onto a football field as a Warrior in your regalia,
Well,
knowing you were about to play?
It's simple. I mean, I had a rule, whether it was practice or a walkthrough or a game, that anytime I crossed onto that field or quote unquote into the arena, that it was for real. And it was, and it's extreme, I know, but I don't apologize for it. It was life or death for me. If it would be like the old, I know this is getting deep, but I imaged the old Roman emperor in the gladiator fights, and after the fight, and one gladiator had one down, the Roman emperor would either give the thumbs up or the thumbs down, and that's how I viewed the football game itself. That's how I viewed weightlifting. That's how I viewed running or training or some of the crazy things that I did, which can be found in the book, that would mentally test myself to see how much I can take and how far was I willing to go.
Yeah.
And I pushed myself to almost severely injuring myself. I continued to play after I suffered a bout of paralysis, which basically led to the change of who I am. All the timing is perfect when you read the book of how that led up to what the journey was to come with Stefanie.
Well, it's amazing because I've read the book and I've read that part a couple of times just because it's almost like watching a movie. I mean, as you read this thing.
It's not a bad idea, you know. any
No,
producers
no.
are-
I think, well, I think it's probably coming sooner rather than later. Just don't. That'd be one of those made-for-TV jobs. Make it be a real one, you know.
Yeah.
But I digress.
I think Gene Hackman would be a good Tim May.
Yeah. Oh man, I have gotten old. You've gotten older too, though. But once again, I digress.
Exactly.
You've got the neck problem. This is like what 1990.
1997.
1997.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you guys, the lump shows up and
Well, there was things that led up to that. I mean, you know, I do believe that you're trained for certain things in life, and you just have to open your eyes. And for me, my discipline and what I wanted to accomplish on the football field was about to be transformed into another arena. In this arena, after the battles, there's no W's or L's. In this arena, what was at stake now was life or death. Then you notch your column, either life or death. And for 12 years, I was able to notch life, but for 1 year, death. So my record, if you want to put it in athletic terms or get a hold of my mindset, was 12-1. And it wouldn't have been 12-1 without Dr. Shapiro, Dr. Farr, and Dr. Tweedle. You guys, just stand up real quick. These are some of Stephanie's doctors that took care of her over the 12 years. Stand up. Dr. Tweedle is actually a beneficiary of, I guess that's the right word, of money from the Stephanie Spielman Fund, who's doing some great work at the James. So I'm sure he'd be glad to answer any questions one day about what he's got going on. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but as strong and stout as you are, and Dr. Shapiro, I mean, these guys come off like heroes in this book. It's really, as they should be.
But I would think that, I can't speak for them, and they didn't treat Stefanie any different than any other patient, and I thank God for that. Now, maybe that's the kind of care that you get when you go to, and this is not an advertisement, it's truth. That's the kind of care you get when you go to the James, and I've heard that from many of Dr. Shapiro's and Dr. Farr's patients. But I do think that since we went on a crazy journey of lost pregnancies, new pregnancies, during this whole time, I mean, eventually you unless you're a robot, you do form some type of relationship with those men. And you know, my dad, I remember telling Dr. Farr, I mean, you're my go-to guy now. My dad's not capable of answering some questions, and he was my go-to guy at a certain point. I don't know if you remember that conversation we had in walking out of the hospital. And Dr. Shapiro and I, we've gone deep. I mean, real deep. And you know, I don't think he does that with all his patients, but I can promise you that he treats every one of his patients like he treated Stefanie.
You had to go through a metamorphosis, though. It was pretty quick, but to get that news, to put everything in perspective, just talk about people who haven't gotten that phone call yet.
Which news are you talking about?
I'm talking
the
about
original diagnosis?
Yeah, the original diagnosis.
I mean, it's brutal. I mean, there's cancer survivors in this room. I see 3 of them. I know when that phone rings what your heart does, you know? And you're at the mercy of a phone call, which absolutely drove me crazy. I mean, here's this, I like to think a mentally tough guy and a strong guy, but I hated being at the mercy of the phone ringing. It drove me nuts.
And in the book, that is so well defined. Go ahead.
So when we got the call, you know, Steph was just in shock, so I was kind of the strong one then, and we'll take care of this, we'll fight this. And then we were going to visit Dr. Farr about 3 hours later, and that's when I lost it and threw a hissy fit in the car. And Stefanie said something very profound that I still carry with me to this day, and something that I used. And because I was on a rant about why me. I mean, we lost a baby in June. My neck wasn't healing at the speed that I wanted to heal. My career was in jeopardy. Then we get a phone call saying she has breast cancer. And so I threw a fit in the car. Why me, this, that. And she looked at me with such, not disdain, although it could have been mistaken for that, but disappointment in me. And she spoke to me in a tone of voice that she'd never used with me before, and it was like, how dare you? And I say, how dare I what? What are you talking about? I mean, look at this. You know, I have a right to be moaning and complaining here. She said, you have no right. She said, are you blind? You have to look back and all the blessings that we've been given, and you're sitting here complaining. Why not us? And she was right. And I think as people in the community, or it doesn't matter if you have a faith or not. I mean, sometimes we get so geared in on what's the next good thing or what's the next blessing that's going to happen to us, and we're always looking forward instead of looking back behind you and look at the trail of blessings and hands that have been serving you for so many years. And so then out of that was born today's a good day, tomorrow looks pretty good. After that, I have no idea. Zero. Still don't.
You and Bruce did the typing on this. You did the talking, as he said, you know, it was the talking outweighed the typing 10 times to 1. And but this book, I mean, you know, like I said a while ago, it outlines a little bit of your football background, but it really just heads pell-mell into like drama, and I'm talking about the book itself. Obviously, you lived it, but just the book really picks up steam when you get the second phone call, especially, and the story of this mighty Chris Spielman going to pick up his 2 older kids at school. I think it's the 2 older kids. Yeah, of course. Then the 2 older kids at school.
Don't give it away now.
Yeah. Well, I got to give away a little bit. I got to give away this part because they would show this in the movie preview if they were doing a movie of you pulling behind a restaurant, crawling into the back seat of your car, and balling up in the fetal position, and I guess weeping for a while.
Yeah.
That's not the Chris Spielman most people picture.
No.
And they're in any kind of situation like this, I think any person finally has to have that moment. And from then on, it seemed like you were a much, I don't know if stronger is not the right word, because Stefanie was the one clearly enduring the situation, but from that moment on, you seemed like a different man, at least as the book tells the story.
Well, my ego got in the way throughout the whole first diagnosis, where a couple of reasons why. Is one, that I had the ego to think that it was my fault that cancer entered into our house and is doing harm to the family. And as a mother, you're protective, but as a husband, you know, you do everything in the world to protect your family, and when something comes into your home and hurts a loved one, I took it personal, and I had this anger of why would I let this happen? So I fought that. So then I fought guilt. Then I started fighting back and throwing punches and being a tough guy against cancer and asking them a million questions, asking them the same questions different ways, better get the same answers, or they don't know what they're talking about with a different question asked the same way. If you can follow that, you're pretty good.
I'm with you. I followed it.
Then you know, for me, I mean, the books, you know, just for me and what I think to be the truth or what I believe to be the truth is that I had to make a choice. I mean, I knew what I believed, I know why I believed it, but I didn't live it. It was like what I thought I needed to live. And so I kept making deals with God, like you are with a kid. I mean, we all done it, sitting in class. If I get a 98 or 100 on this test, I'll do this. Or my goal would be, if I would make 10 baskets in a row, I'll be playing in the NFL. That was the goal. That's the deals I was making with God. And I was acting childish because I was still making these deals during this whole cancer process. Then when my deal, or what I thought God broke our contract, I was alone. Yeah. And I had nowhere to go. Then a verse popped into my mind, and I repeated it. And from then on, I knew that I wasn't in control, and the only thing I can do is be a solid teammate for her.
You talked about that helpless feeling too. I mean, helpless was the word, because like you just said, you were this big, strong,
can't control it,
brute, and really there was nobody to punch. There was nobody to kick out of your house. Like you said, you just had, in essence, helpless, and you had to deal with it. You know, no one wishes what you've gone through and what Stefanie went through on anyone.
That's true, but everybody's got a story. I can't tell you the amount. I don't want to be applauded for what I did. I did what I was promised and lived to my vows. That, and when I said to her on June 24th of 1989 in Canton, Ohio, in sickness and in health, I meant it. And so I didn't do anything any different than I don't know, guys, what, 1,000, 2,000 people do a year, or whatever the diagnosis is every day, where I was lucky. I had an easier decision to make because financially I was able to walk away and financially be okay. So I don't need to be applauded for being a husband and a father, you know. But there's gentlemen that do what I do every day, still doing it, and they're not alone. And I want them to know that's what the book is, to help them to know that they're not alone. But
you guys, I mean, you guys went totally the opposite of like crawling into your closet and not wanting the world to know. You and Stefanie have raised millions, maybe tens of millions of dollars to find a cure for this thing. I mean, she was out front.
You didn't read your paper yesterday?
Yeah.
It's $10 million.
Yeah. I read it.
Ray?
I said
Can you get him a copy of the paper, please?
That's why I said tens. I'm giving you credit. I'm giving you more benefit, maybe. Maybe there's another check coming in. Maybe Urban Meyer will come to that next cruise, huh?
Yeah, well,
I mean,
hopefully.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, from the cure for, you know, from the, was a cruise for the cure, but, you know, just right on down the line, the Champions Luncheon, which I think is remarkable because it brings into focus the people who deal with the people who are dealing with cancer. And there are a lot of heroes out there every day. By heroes, I mean who are dealing with this. And you were one of them, and you understand that more than anyone else, or as much as anyone else.
Well, let me say this. You learn lessons and mistakes that you made. I was giving a speech in San Antonio with Steph, and I said something like, all right, if you have breast cancer, you got to get out there and spread the word. There's no right way to deal with it. I'm not, how arrogant of me to try to tell somebody how to deal with their disease. It's a joke. I mean, that's some of the mistakes that I made because that's just my personality. And I remember that a young lady came up to me and she said, I appreciate all you do, but you have no right to tell anybody how to deal with their disease. And she was absolutely right. And I've been humbled by that. To me, you had to have two personalities. Everything was a kind of a perfect storm for fundraising, I would think. I mean, if you were to start fundraising in a world, you'd want somebody with at least somewhat popular name, myself, somebody with the ability to speak, and I still think radiant beauty of Stefanie, and the grace that she, and just the presence that she had. I mean, this is your perfect fundraising team. And by the way, look at their story. I mean, this is perfect. This is, if we want to raise $10 million for breast cancer research, we got the couple to do it for you. It's like casting a movie. This is the perfect couple.
You were on Oprah.
And the perfect story and the perfect storm, and we realized that, but we realized and believed with all of our hearts that this was not an accident. Cancer was allowed in her for a reason. Her death is not for nothing. Her death is for something. And we understood that. And she had no fear of dying. Her only fear was obvious, missing 4 kids grew up. But as far as fear as death, none whatsoever.
Let me talk to you. Let me ask you a question, though. You, through your life now, I mean, you got to be really close friends with a guy named Eric Andelsack.
Right.
Great player from Louisiana State, who you guys had a running battle with the day y'all played down there in the what's the name of that? What's the name of that?
Tiger Stadium.
Yeah, Tiger Stadium. But it's got the nickname. What's the name of the nickname? Nickname for Tiger Stadium, anyway. No, that's Florida.
That's
anyway,
our 2 sports guys.
I'll think of it here in a minute. But you guys had a running battle that day. You didn't like him. He didn't like you. And next thing you know, y'all are best buddies at the Detroit Lions. He's out weed whacking, as you said, his front lawn down in Louisiana. You and Stefanie. You maybe say Stefano. You and Stefanie are on a cruise. You get a phone call. He's been hit by a truck where a guy had been doing cocaine, ran off the road and hit him, killed him. Your friend Mike Utley on the Detroit Lions, you saw him get hit in football, go down, and was paralyzed. You know, your deal with Stefanie for those years, and then, in essence, watching your father die. What has that done? I mean, I'm not saying that's done anything for you, but how has that changed you as a man to deal with those type of tragedies?
Well, I mean, we can go out of the room here, and everybody's going to have a story about some loss in their life. Again, the only thing is that I get to talk about the loss in my life. But how I deal with it is I don't look at death as the end. I look at death as a beginning, and I look at death as a new start, because I do believe that there is a heaven, and when we get there, that you are restored in all your glory. And so for me, I never felt bad about praying for death for Stefanie when in her last days, the condition that she was in, because I knew that she would be restored, where there's no more pain, no more fears, no more tears, no more sorrow, only joy, pure joy that we will not be able to comprehend until we arrive.
Did it bother you, Lance Armstrong, a very famous cancer survivor, made a comment long ago, or several years ago, that he said he kind of like, not berated, but chided some folks who put their faith in the Lord and in Jesus. He goes, you've got to fight it yourself. You've got to fight the fight. That's what got him through it.
Well, no, it doesn't bother me, because I'm in no position to tell anybody what to believe. I'll tell them why I believe it. And Stefanie and I's philosophy was, throughout this, was to expose what we believe but never impose it. Mm-hmm. And to me, the only thing I would say to Lance would be, where do you get that will and desire to fight? I know where mine came from. I don't know where his comes from. Yeah. But that's free will, and that's a gift in itself.
You know, like I said a while ago, you would give anything to have her back. But as you look back...
well, have her back how? Just have her back and healthy? And
have her back healthy, yeah.
Have her back how she was?
No.
I'd be very selfish. That's words of my daughter, not me.
Yeah. No, I'm saying you have her back healthy.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying this never happened.
Right. But I don't think about that, because that's unrealistic.
Yeah. But with that said, I mean, you guys, this was this beautiful young cheerleader. You met, you were 17, she was 15, I think, when y'all first dated. And grew up together. She was your only ever girlfriend, I think, that mattered. Yeah. And
can't imagine why. Football, crush, weightlift, destroy.
That's what I'm trying to...
Pick you up at 8.
That's
for
what I'm getting
Football
to.
films.
That's what I'm getting to. She was your Super Bowl trophy. I mean, she was that. Maybe there are other people out there that would have gotten you, but she got you. How blessed do you feel to have married, to have met someone that young who got you?
Well, I tell my kids that, that's why I celebrate. I don't mourn her loss. I celebrate her life and how lucky I was to have a marriage like I had. And I know many people like, nobody likes bad marriages. They're sad, and it breaks my heart when I hear of people that break up or get divorced. I was lucky to have 20 years, 20 years. And I was grateful. And so I don't sit here, or I don't waste my days saying, I wish I had this, I wish I had that. I'm grateful for what I have. And I was grateful for that. And, I want to, and Stefanie was very wise, I want to continue life and living, and maybe I'll have that again one day. I hope to.
I kind of asked this earlier, but I want to ask it another way. What if there's a message, in this book that you want people to get more than anything else, what is the message? Because you don't just write a book to write a book.
There's a couple messages, if you don't mind. And the first one is written by a very old guy named Paul, who writes, be on your guard, because we never know what's going to happen. There's good things, bad things are going to happen to us every single day. Stand firm in your faith, or stand firm in what you believe. Be men and women of strength, be men and women of courage. Do everything with love and passion. The second message is what you give will grow, and what you keep you will lose. So if you have an opportunity to give back, it grows and spreads like wildfire throughout the community. If you keep everything, all the good that you have, if you keep it to yourself, it'll eventually wither and die. So I guess, and the whole message of this is, another message, I don't know, there's a lot of messages. Hope that is not a wish. you know, I hope this happens, but in my view, in my eyes, hope that is a promise. And that book is full of hope, even in death.
Appreciate it, Chris.
All right.
We're gonna open this up to questions now from the audience, and I'm told here that the Metropolitan Club records all of these things for television broadcast on ONN. So if you ask a question, you're going to be seen on television. It does appear. And if you have a question, you need to come to the microphone. Where's the microphone? Yeah, right here in the middle. And we'd like to thank you in advance for not making long editorial comments. It's quasi-questions.
Ray's job.
Yeah, that's Ray's job, exactly.
Letters to the editor, I love
Death
it.
Valley, by the way, that was the name of
Death Valley?
yeah.
What's
of,
Clemson?
LSU. I think it's Death Valley also.
Okay,
So
all right.
a little bit of bragging rights there, some trademark rights in there. You know, somebody makes their way to the audience. Real quick, I wanted to ask you, because we're kind
Nobody
of
has
passed through the
questions.
book, but yeah, I wanted to ask you, what's your impression of Urban Meyer and what he's done?
I think he's great. And I think
You got to
that
know him well, I mean, over the last year.
I've known him real well. I mean, I spent 4 days a week with him for 6 months.
Yeah.
So he's genuine, and he's hard. I mean, he's tough, and he's going to open some guys' eyes. He's old school. I mean, his favorite coaching mentor was Earl Bruce, and Earl was tough. And so, but he genuinely cares about the kids. He's genuine. He's as genuine as they get, and he comes off a little rough sometimes, but that's what he is. It's better that than being fake.
Yeah. You ask him a question, he gives you an answer,
Yeah.
kind of like you.
Yeah.
Not kind of like you, just like you.
All right.
Yeah, Chris, my name is John McKnight, and first I just wanted to thank you for opening up and sharing your story and everything that, you know, you have and continue to go through, because I, you know, can draw some inspiration from that on a lot of different ways. It's, you know, important on a lot of levels. One question I had for you is, in your efforts and raising awareness and fundraising, do politics get in the way? I know that they can on the research side of things, but I don't think of you as the research guy. I think of you as the,
Do my politics
you know,
get in the way?
no, not your politics. Do politics of the world get in your way as far as
Yeah,
fundraising and your
here's how
efforts
I
to try to
deal
get
with
things?
that. No, I mean, there's always a battle in fundraising. It's big money. At stake is big money. Again, here's an honest answer. Fundraising is tough because you're battling for dollars. And for me, you know, big fundraising is you're battling for corporate dollars. And it comes down to this. Hey, either you want to give or you don't. You know, it's that simple. If you're into it, then give it. If not, give it to somewhere else. Settles that. So no, politics don't enter it to me.
Good. No, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And then second question on the football side of things, you talked about something with your brother that got in your way. Did he have it coming?
What was this?
No, he was referring to when you punched out his television,
Oh,
I think,
oh,
after the
He wasn't
after
there.
the draft.
I destroyed something
Uh-huh.
of his.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Again,
you.
I really appreciate you sharing everything.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Step on up to the microphone if you have a question. Looking back on your father, for example, I didn't realize your
It's
dad.
tough, man.
I know, but before he got sick, I mean, exactly. But there he was. He was a dancer. You know, he liked to dance. I mean,
Right.
he had a lot of. I think he was into artwork a little bit.
Yeah.
Did you know all this as you were growing up?
Yes.
Were you? And yet he was a big-time football coach. I mean, owned you guys hard. He was like my dad.
Yeah.
He would use the paddle maybe a couple, 3 times, but you remembered all 3. You know.
Yeah.
And
more
how
than
did-
3.
But as you look back, how did he sort of shape your view on life as you look back on it now?
Well, I think he was an awesome father. He took us everywhere. It was tough though, and I'll share one story. My dad was a camp director at Canton Jewish Community Center. And so I used to be involved in all the leagues up there, and because we got a free membership because he worked there. And so we got involved in all the leagues, my brother and I. And I was playing a basketball game up there on a Sunday afternoon, and he came. And had 3 fouls in the first half. And he never really said much in the game. He said, "Son, you got 3 fouls. Don't get a stupid foul before halftime." And that was it, because there was a timeout, and he just leaned over real quick. And so the kid dribbled the ball down, and I had no angle or anything, but I reached in and got a 4th foul. And all of a sudden, he stood up out of his chair, and he says, this is a quote, "Dumbass. You're a dumbass." you're walking home. And so second half came, finished the game. I ended up fouling out, and I actually had 5 fouls. I fouled out before halftime because I remember now we only had 5 kids dressed. And I ended up walking home in the winter. And it was 3.7 miles because I measured it off when I turned 16 and I could drive. But the lesson learned there was that it's not about you, it's about the team. And don't try to do anything which you're not capable of doing. And if you have to sacrifice for the good of the team, then do it. But quit serving yourself. But he had a hard way about him. And you know, I inherited some of that with my kids, but I would also say that everything that I did well, I was hugged and kissed and loved. And when I needed corrected, I got corrected. And there was a standard to be met. And I'm trying to do that with my kids. And you know, there's a fine line that you have to walk. And you guys know, all parents know this. And you know, when do you cross it? When do you don't? And now I'm dealing with, I was talking about this on 97.1 Friday about prom dresses.
Yeah.
I mean, I keep saying no.
Yeah.
Then there's another one that she texts no. The third one was heck no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then my response was, why don't you just wear your bikini to the prom?
Yeah. Yeah. And why does it cost $300?
Yeah, and then she said, you know, then of course, I have no idea what I'm talking about. So, you know, that's the way it is.
I'm dealing with that
fun.
too. I'm dealing with that too.
See, but that's I think with my kids, I'm always walking that fine line of knowing, okay, how much of their troubles are being connected with the loss of a mother, or how much of their troubles are being an 18-year-old daughter, a 16-year-old son, and an 11-year-old girl, and a 9-year-old girl. I mean, that's the line that I battle every day.
Women.
Yeah, I can say that too.
I'm Jane Scott, and my question really is about your children. I know I went through the experience when I was in college of losing my mom through cancer. And while I would never ever wish that experience on any other young person, I know it changed my life and how I live my life. Can you talk a little bit about how the experience with your wife and the kids' loss of their mother has changed their lives, and what you think it's going to manifest for them later?
Well, I think I used to pray for grace and mercy for healing. When that didn't come, I had my eyes open to see that grace and mercy came in the form of how my kids have handled the loss of their mother. And I'll get into why, but for me, my fear, and I would lose sleep over this constantly, was that I was so afraid that they were going to be so bitter and have hatred and run away from God. All 4 of them, even the youngest at a young age, chose to run to God for their comfort. They've become independent. They've become reliant on each other. They've understand that my son and daughter have been asked to talk to kids that have lost a mother or father, and so they deal with it. The 2 oldest ones have been around it. We never hid anything. I mean, ever. They knew that Steph went to funerals on once a month for 12 years, going to a funeral. So they knew that was part of the deal. And I just told them that, you know, and my daughter reminded me of this, that, you know, this is what Steph wanted, and if you need me to break out the tape or video that she made of what she wanted, I will. But her whole message to them was never to use her death as an excuse for anything, but motivation for everything that they do. And so I use that as a reminder to them all the time. Now, there's still the challenges, believe me. There's still days where they just need to deal with it, and that I need to deal with it still. But those seem to be getting a little bit shorter and a little bit more tolerable, and they need to feel good about that and not feel bad about that. And we go to every time we go visit the grave, there's always a little sadness and quiet. When we pull out of the cemetery, there's always laughing and a little bit of singing because of the radio station we have on, and I hear them singing together, or I hear them smiling, or saying, okay, I got to watch this tonight or I got to do this for homework, then I know that they're okay. So that's how they've changed.
Chris, I appreciate it.
Done
just wanna let
already?
you know
That was easy.
reading this book, there were many times when the hair stood up on the back of my neck. I mean, just it really touches. It really touched me, and I know you fairly well, but now I know you a lot better just from reading this book. And you know, the fact you become through all of this a cosmopolitan man almost is.
I wish I knew what that meant.
Yeah.
The fact that I don't know what it means thinks I'm not a cosmopolitan
Yeah.
man.
I think that means you're the ultimate.
Bet you didn't call me the Metro.
You're metrosexual.
Yeah. Glad you didn't go there with me.
Hated it. Yeah. But anyway, appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Well, on behalf of the Metropolitan Club, Chris, thank you so much. We're so blessed to have you and to have Stefanie still blessing this community. Thank you. And thanks to Tim May for being our moderator today. Thanks to the Dispatch, Ray Stein, and the group for sponsorship. I want you to make sure you sign up for next week, Al Dietzel, and come listen to us again. And join us for coffee and cookies out in the lobby if you like. Thank you for coming. Please come back.